it was hard, it was challenging, but I learned a lot.
You had to trust yourself.
I had to trust myself, and I had to stop second guessing myself, which is something I also struggled with, and the buck stopped with me. If something goes wrong, it was my fault. And I also appreciated the fact that it's okay to make mistakes.
Welcome to another episode of Sisters in Conversation. I'm your host, Tebelo Motwane. I'm an attorney by profession and the founder of a platform called Sister in Law, which is a platform dedicated to empowering women through legal education. On today's episode, I'm joined by Refilwe Lechaba. Refilwe, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to a chat.
I told you you're on my hit list.
When I saw the hit list, I was like, me? Really? Thank you so much for having me.
No, I really had been meaning to invite you for so long, but life kept getting in the way. And then I think you came out of your social media hiatus, and I was like yes. I've been looking for this girl, but I didn't know. So thank you so much for honoring the invitation, and I'm very excited to learn from you today.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's take it to the beginning.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Refilwe. Where did you grow up? How many siblings do you have? And all of that.
Well, I grew up in the Northwest. I was born and bred in the Northwest, and in a small town called Zeerust. And it was a great upbringing. I have two sisters. One is unfortunately late. And my mother and father were absolutely great. My mother was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. So you can imagine the pressure that we were under, because in fact, everybody in my mom's family was a teacher. My grandmother's sister. So we started school early. And then because my mother's a teacher, she's like, repeat that grade one again. So education has always...
She thought you were not ready.
She was like, you're not
to take
ready.
on the big bad
But
world.
you know what? I guess she was right. And, education has always been at the forefront of everything we do at home. My parents have always instilled that. And, Refilwe loves her family. I love traveling a lot. And when I'm not a lawyer, and I always say, it's always funny to tell people this, when I'm not busy lawyering, I love shooting commercials, TV dramas, name it all. Yeah, you can name it, and that's really who I am in essence.
That's why off camera I said, we know you're a natural, Wana Ferguson.
Yes,
but we'll get into that. Okay, and then tell me about one of your fondest or funniest memories from primary school. You sit and you're like, hey, what was going on? Or even high school.
I think primary school, this is something that really stands out for me, and even this morning I thought about it. I remember in primary school, so not to show off or anything, I've always been particularly book smart. And I remember one day there was a prize giving ceremony at school, and they were giving away diaries to the top achievers in the school. And I remember I was literally the shortest person standing up on the stage that day. Everybody else was in grade 7.
Okay.
And I was in grade 2, 3. And I still remember that, because I remember after that particular ceremony, one of my teachers came to my mom and said, you have to do something about this girl. She's smart. You have to invest in that. So it's always one of, when I have my down moments, when things are not going well, I always go back to that, because I always think about, listen.
You're smart.
I'm smart. Even
I love that.
Things aren't going my way, at least I still have that. And another fun memory that I still remember, I entered a beauty pageant and didn't tell my mom.
Okay.
She found out the day I was competing, because she had to go buy me a swimming costume. And I guess what
Why did you tell her?
Because you know what, growing up, my mom didn't like the fact that I was all over. I was that girl who, after school, would put her back down, tell Osi, I'll be back, and then they'll have to come look for me, come my 7-6 when it's dark. So I entered a beauty pageant, didn't tell my mom, told my neighbor, and she told my mom on the Saturday morning,
costume.
Costume. And I was actually second princess of that beauty pageant. So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So, did you attend the schools where any of your aunts or mom was a teacher?
Yeah, so...
Or did you try to break away from
that? Grade 0 to grade 1, I attended my grandmother's school. So, she wasn't my teacher, but I went to one of the schools
Yes,
that she
yes.
taught at, and my grandmother's sister was actually school principal at that school. So there was also immense pressure because you have to behave
Yeah.
well behaved, because your grandmother's sister is the
Is
school
there?
principal.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, and then eventually, my dad was in the military, so we then moved over to Pretoria because obviously the military moved him here, and then that's when I came. We moved to Pretoria, and I was around. I can't remember the exact age, but I was in grade 3, and then I obviously did the rest of my primary school in Pretoria, and then I went over to high school. Yeah, and my parents decided that going to a girls' school for high school was the best option.
Which high school did you go
I
to?
went to Loreto Convent,
Okay.
so an all-girls Catholic school. Let me tell you,
And how was that experience?
I think, you know what, it really shaped me into the woman I am, and it really helped with my relationship with God, most importantly, which is something that I value. But the sisterhood that we formed at that school, some of my friends from high school are still friends that I still have today and I'm in contact with. And because we're such a small group, we know each other, we see each other all the time. And I think the most important thing for me was the sisterhood
I
that we
love
had.
that.
It
I
was
love that. It makes you a girl's girl.
a girl's girl,
I
right?
love
You know
that.
that we didn't have to bicker around boys. And I mean, on an odd occasion, we'd see a boy from Boys High and we'll all go gaga. But I think the sisterhood is what really stands out for me about my high school experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so, given the fact that your, mom and mom's side are teachers, dad in the military, what made Refilwe want to pursue law? Like, yeah, what was the deciding factor
Factor.
or the determining
Yeah.
factor?
I knew in high school, I remember we had, was it LO something, guidance, career guidance. And they were like, what do you want to become? I had two options. I said an accountant and an attorney. And my teacher said to me, I don't think accounting is your thing. Numbers are not your thing. Think about law more. And I actually sat down and I told my parents, and my mom was just like, accounting is not your thing.
Okay.
Law, definitely. And I think law was really what I actually ended up doing because, and it sounds so cliche, and a lot of us say this, but because I saw it as a platform to help people.
Yeah, yeah.
I knew I could do law to help people. And also, for me, law was, in essence, represented strength. I saw myself, if being an attorney or being a lawyer, I thought about a powerful black woman, So law was essentially, I really wanted to help people. That's why I went into law, because I thought, listen, I can offer my services. I mean, it didn't turn out exactly
Yeah,
that way,
yeah.
but it was a platform that I believed would help me help other people.
Okay, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. When I asked the question, I thought you were going to say initially you wanted to pursue something like journalism,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
also see you there,
There.
like, especially that kind of hectic journalism, Debra Pata.
Yeah,
like,
yes.
saying, I want answers.
Task. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? At some point also, I remember my mom did say law, but my parents were also at certain instances skeptical about, is this something you really want? Are you going to excel in it? Are you going to do well in it? Because growing up, I've always, like I said, beauty pageants, and everybody always thought beauty pageant, TV, camera, that was really something I
Okay.
really wanted to do.
Look, they were not wrong.
They were not wrong.
Yeah.
But I think for me, law was, in essence, a platform to help people. And I saw it as, listen, power, like, powerful, black, strong woman. And yeah.
Okay, lovely. And then which university did you go to, and what was your campus life like?
Yeah.
What was your experience like? Were you just still book all the way, or you were just,
Having the time
go
of my
out,
life.
have fun, come
Yeah.
back at 4 a.m. and make up for it?
Yes.
Study.
I'm sorry to disappoint people, but I was actually such a boy in varsity.
Okay.
So I went to the University of Pretoria, and I still continued, and I felt like I didn't have to try hard, but I did well academically. So I did well academically. I didn't live on campus. I lived at home. For me, just my comfort zone was always home.
Yeah.
For me, I felt safe at home. I felt comfortable and I had
Grounded,
I had
yeah.
the necessary support. So one thing I have been working on is I'm very hard on myself. So after a test or an exam, I'd get home, and that's why I needed to be at home. I needed to be around people who knew me, who understood what type of person I am. Because after an exam, and let's say I was writing an exam and I missed a question, I would be so hard on
Oh, my
myself.
goodness.
So I needed to get home, and my mom would be there and be like, no, you're just too hard on yourself. I'm sure you did well. The reassurance from people who you know understand you and love you. That's why I chose to stay at home. So I didn't have much of a campus life. I studied most of the time, but I formed great relationships with a lot of my friends who are still friends today. And I also was active on campus. I mean, I did student court. There was something called student court. I was a member of the student court. I was a tutor. So, and I did try to have fun. It's not like I didn't go out with friends, but I wasn't the type of student who would go out and come back at 4 and make up for it. For me, I continued on that. Academic excellence is very important because I knew where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to get into a big 5 firm, and I knew I had to work hard to get into that big 5 firm to do vacation work where I wanted to do it. So, yeah.
So did you then do some VAC work during your time?
Yeah. So whilst I was studying, I did a couple of VAC work programs, which were quite great. I think the importance of those programs, it shows you what you're going to get yourself into. I mean, it's not a 100%
Absolutely,
an accurate
I mean,
reflection
it's
of
like
what
2
articles
weeks, but you get a
but you get an idea of, okay, this is what people do in articles, the type of work you're going to do, the type of environment. And I think for me, vacation work was very important because I've always known that I don't want to be a director at a firm. I've always known that my goal is to go to a firm, do my articles, get admitted, and leave, because practice is not for me.
Okay.
So vacation work was an important platform to see whether I fit into the culture of the particular firm
I love
that
that.
I had identified. So I did vacation work.
From what year? From like
So from second year, I
Okay.
started applying because then, a lot of them say use your second year marks to apply and get in by third year. So from second year, I started applying, and I did a couple. I think I did about 3 or 4 vacation work programs for big, what they traditionally called the big 5 firms. And I got to identify where I would be comfortable, right? Which firm's culture resonated with me. And I think that was a very important platform for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were then in your 3rd or 4th year when you secured articles.
Yes, yeah. I
Okay.
secured articles
Is it
with
Adams?
CDH,
Oh,
Cliff
okay.
Decker of Mayor, and because I did VAC work with them. So we actually went on to a VAC program. We did it for 2 weeks, and at the end of the VAC program, they had what they called an exit interview, where they interview you to identify candidates they actually want to offer articles to. And I remember quite vividly the day I got my letter informing me that I had actually secured articles. I was sitting with my mom in her bedroom, and she said, "Are you sure about Joburg? I don't see you as a Joburg girl.
Yeah,
Why are
yeah.
you not applying for articles in Pretoria? Look for a small firm." And I was just like, "But you know that is just
You've
not
been
me."
there by top 5.
Exactly. I was
Yes,
just like,
yes.
"But you know that's just not me." And she's like, "No, I'm just worried that you're going to become overwhelmed because you love home so much. I'm worried that you won't be able to cope." And yeah, I secured my articles in my 3rd year. So I went into my 4th year knowing everything is secure. I don't have to worry about articles. All I have to worry about is getting through my final
Finishing
year,
strong, yeah,
finishing strong.
yeah.
And yeah, I secured my articles, and I was ready to take it to the end and get to my 4th year.
Sure. And what was then that transition like of, from school or from varsity to working, doing your articles? And also my understanding is that you now had to also transition from Pretoria to Joburg.
Yeah.
And, maybe from living with parents to now living
Being
alone
alone.
for the
Yeah.
first time. How was that transition? Like so many things were happening at the same time. How
Time.
did you get through, let's say, the first 6 months?
It was quite hard and very challenging. I mean, you raised something very important. I've always lived at home. Now this huge transition of not only am I now a whole adult, have to be responsible for myself. I had to get an apartment. I'm just like, what? With my
Yeah.
own money,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of those things have to be financially savvy. Remember to pay rent on time.
Yo.
Be safe because you're living on your own and all of that. And articles itself is a huge transition. I think I've been very vocal about it. If there is one thing that I'm very vocal about is I'll never not tell people the truth about how hard articles are. Articles, and I think for me, articles were very hard. I had a terrible experience the first few months of my articles. And I think also primarily was based on the fact that it was a huge adjustment.
Yeah.
And particularly for somebody who's used to excelling, right? You now have to come into an environment
Where you have to learn, like
where you
now
have to learn. You
no
got
zero.
in, yes,
Eh.
you got in because your marks were excellent. You have a great personality. We liked you, but now your academic intelligence really
Isn't
isn't a
necessarily
factor.
what carries you.
You right? So
Yes.
it's something you also have to reconcile yourself with. That listen, you are academically smart, but we are all here
Welcome
to
to
learn.
the big bad world.
Exactly. So that was a huge adjustment, and also learning to. I think one thing articles taught me that I value a lot is that to never take things personally.
Yeah.
It's really it's
Yeah.
really not you. It's not
Yeah.
that you are not smart. It's not. It's just that everybody's busy. Everybody's trying to bill. Directors are busy. They're trying to bill. They're trying to make sure that they get their numbers at the end of the month. They just want you to do your work. And yes, they do have the responsibility to teach you. But I think one thing that I really learned and valued was that you shouldn't take things personally.
I
And
love that.
I've
Yeah,
held on
so
to that
right.
with as I move through my career, that
Yeah,
don't
don't
take
take it
things
personally.
personally. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So, do you still remember what your first rotation was and what your or
Yeah.
what your favorite rotation was?
So my first rotation was employment law, not my fave. And I remember the reason why I didn't like employment law was because it made me feel quite bad. Because remember, and this links to the fact that I always said I wanted to do law to help people.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got to a firm, and when you're at a big firm or any other medium-sized firm, you realize that you're actually on the other side. And I remember I went to
Okay,
to
yeah, yeah.
I think it wasn't the CCMA, but it was definitely the bargaining council or something. And we were representing the employer. And I remember the employee saying to me, "Yo, such a traitor." And she said it in Venek, and actually hurt my feelings. And I realized,
imagine.
actually, I wanted to study law to help the very same person
The
that
vulnerable
today, the
people.
vulnerable
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that today I'm actually acting against. And I think that's why I really didn't like employment law, because I felt like, in essence, if I felt like a traitor, though. You know, when
But it job, it job.
but it job. But I don't know what it was. I
Yeah,
think
I can
that discussion with
imagine.
that lady really changed my
Yeah.
perspective on employment law. I was just like, no, it's not for me. So I think my favorite rotation, which I really enjoyed, funny enough, was pro bono.
Okay.
So I had a rotation in pro bono, and you get to do pro bono work. You also get to help, obviously, vulnerable members of of society. You get to do work for organizations. I think I enjoyed that a lot because I think it resonated with that whole
Yeah,
I want to help people. Yeah. But employment law, not for me. Litigation was also a good one. I really enjoyed it. And pro bono was a good rotation that I really enjoyed.
Sure, I really love that. Earlier on, you mentioned something important about like paying rent on time, and I think one of the reasons why I love this platform is that we are in a position to educate, especially maybe the students who are listening. And just about the dangers of getting it wrong in the beginning with your finances,
Yeah.
and that first paycheck.
Yeah.
What is one of the what are one of the memories you have around the decisions you made around your finances
Yeah.
during those first 3 paychecks? Let me put it that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
And I think it's very important to discuss finances, right? Because you think, oh my God, you get like 20,000, 30,000, an amount you're not used to, right? Because you're in university as a student, we relied on our parents to give us pocket money. I think one thing I really prioritized and made sure of, I don't live according to people's standards, right? And I have a saying, and it's very funny, and I always throw it around, but I always say, "Bophelo ha se group work," which literally means life is not...
It's not teamwork.
Yeah, it's not
group work.
teamwork.
Yeah.
That's not how life
Yeah.
works, right? You have to do things according to your needs. So when I first started working, I didn't see the need. I had already gotten a car for my parents' university. So I didn't see the need to buy a new car. It was an old car, but I knew it could get me from A to B. So my priority was, okay, focus on paying rent. Instead of having 2 huge liabilities, rent and a car, focus on one. Focus
just
on rent, and then just continue driving this old car you got at university, make sure that it's serviced well. So things like also make sure that you pay rent on time, make sure that you also pay your car insurance on time. So I think I prioritized what I deemed important at the time. And
I love that.
and I knew that I had to save money. Yes, I also did live a little. I went out with friends, enjoyed my time out with friends, would go out with friends, but I also was cognizant of the fact that I needed to save money. Also, articles is a 2-year period. What
Yeah.
happens after 2 years?
Yeah.
Are
And
you
now
going to
ukene mo sekolotong sa koloi.
sa koloi. I
Yo,
mean,
yeah,
yes,
5
you know
years.
what? Sometimes you do have to buy a car. If you don't have the luxury of having a car that your parents got you, I understand that you actually have to get a car. But perhaps you get a car in a cheaper place, or maneuver things around. Don't just drown yourself in debt because okay, now I'm in Sandton, I have to get a place in Sandton
Now Golf
and have to
7.
go and buy a 1 series.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Okay, I really love that. And then, okay, you did your articles. What was your overall experience? Was that articles difficult?
Yeah.
Don't take things personally. When did you then make the decision that you wanted a stint at being a judge's clerk? And how did you go about doing that?
So whilst I was doing my articles, I heard about this clerkship thing and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That sounds interesting. Let me look into it. Then I looked into it and a friend had actually previously applied for it and gave me tips about it. It's a rigorous process. You have to write a whole essay, submit a written submission. But this person was telling me how people who've done it before say it's such a great experience. And I went and I looked into it. And I think I was probably in my second year of articles, or maybe my first year towards the end. Of my articles. And like I said, I've always known that I want to go in, do my articles, and leave, right? So I had to start thinking about what next? What happens after articles? Because it's 2 years. What's my next plan? And I heard about this clerkship and I actually looked into it and I applied the first time.
With you.
It resonated with me. I submitted. And lucky enough, one of the requirements was that you have to submit a written portfolio. And I had actually written something in my final year of university. And I remember my article was about affirmative action and the impact on the judiciary. So I actually tweaked it around to speak about affirmative action and the impact on the judiciary. And I remember at the time, the hot topic that was going around was whether female judges, that South Africa needed a lot more female judges appointments at the time. So my article was linked to that.
Okay.
And I submitted that and the rest is history. I got interviewed. I must say it was a rigorous process, but I was actually quite proud of myself and chuffed with myself that I applied the first time and got in. Because I remember, you know how people always
How
try
was the
to...
interview process?
And people also try to... I think something that I'm also learned throughout my career, right? Listen to advice, but be careful of what you take in, right?
Yeah, because people like to project as well.
People like to project, and when you ask people, oh, it's so difficult. I applied 5 times, never got in the first time. You're probably gonna get in after the 4th time you apply. And I was just like, oh, okay, you know what? Let's see if I don't get in.
And we all experience things differently,
right? Yeah, we experience things differently. So I thought, you know what? Somebody said to me, people apply for years, they don't get in. They get thousands and thousands of applications, which is true. They do get a lot of applications. So I applied. The interview process is it's very long. It's very rigorous. And each judge has their own process. So what happens in my time when I applied is you would apply to all of the different judges. So you would say, okay, I'm applying to Justice Kampepe, who I ended up clerking for. Justice Kampepe, I'm applying to the Chief Justice, who I'm applying to whoever, judge whoever, and then you submit your application for that particular judge, and then what happens is that you then get feedback, and then you get told, okay, this judge wants to see you. I remember I had about 4 or 5 interviews with the different judges. Each judge has a different process, and I think what really resonated with Justice Kampepe, it wasn't a difficult interview. I got to be myself. I walked in the room, and she said she was lovely, and she asked me, what is your favorite right in the Constitution? And I said, human dignity. And she asked me why, and I said, because no matter how poor you are, how rich you are, and no matter what people do or say to you, at the end of the day, the one thing that nobody can ever take away from you
Is your dignity.
Is your dignity. And she said, no, you are my girl. And she said, literally, you are my girl. And it was that simple. Whilst with other judges, they'd ask you about their judgment, what your view is, what do you think they should have done better. So it's really different. Yeah.
That sounds hard though. Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do I think?
And the thing is, you're like, must I tell you that judgment was bad? Badly
What do you
think? What do you think?
Yeah. And during your time, just as a clerk, what was the one, okay, let's talk about both sides. What was the one challenging moment where you were like, yo, what am I doing here? But also, what was the affirming moment where you got home or whatever and looked in the mirror and said, yo, Refilwe, you are the girl?
Yeah. I think for me, the affirming moment was getting to the court itself, being there, seeing myself in that space. I mean, you get to work with these judges hands on. You are literally part of their lives. You become part of their day-to-day lives. They rely on you for research and just to see how the judges value your opinion. Because they would ask you to say, okay, go research on this matter that's before the court, that's right, look into it. And they sit down with you, they listen to you, and they take your opinion into account. So I think for
I
me,
love it. Yeah.
you know, you wake up sometimes, you're just like, oh my, you know what, I don't want to do this today. And then you get to the office or to the chamber, and judge is there, and judge says, Refilwe, you know that opinion you gave me, I agree with you. That is reassuring and reaffirming that, listen, I'm doing the
Your
right thing.
contribution matters.
You know, my
I love
contribution
that.
matters. I think the hardest thing for me was also the pressure we were under. It's a lot of work. I think people also like to glamorize this clerking experience. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. You're at the Concord, the highest court in South Africa. When there are TV cameras for high-profile matters, you are sitting there in front of these judges. You are a clerk, you know. But I think also behind the glamour of this prestigious position is also the hard work that you have to put in. It's really a lot of hard work. And I remember sometimes judge once mentioned and said, you know, sometimes one of my requirements is that people who come and clerk for me have to have prior working experience, like articles or something, because of the nature of the environment. It's so hectic. You have to put in the hours, and sometimes people who come straight from varsity don't
It's a
understand
difficult
that. It's difficult for them to
transition.
adjust. But with people who have prior working experience, they can adjust quite well, you know. But it's actually a lot of work.
Yeah, yo,
Yeah.
I just came, yeah, just the thought of it on its own, like coming from varsity then into
To
that,
yeah.
that sounds hectic. Yeah,
And it's not like articles where you have a designated director who's there to train you. With judges, yes, they do, in essence, do train you, but there's high expectations. If somebody wants research now, judge is not going to come to say, oh, search on Sabinet or
Yes,
Nexus and do
yes.
it this way.
Ooh.
The expectation is that you should
You
know
know
how
how
to do that.
to
Yeah.
find the information.
Yeah.
Sure. And so looking back, what is, say, maybe the one, I'm sure there are a couple of things, but what's the one thing that you're so grateful for from that experience, your
Yeah.
articles and clerking? What were the differences? Or what are you just really grateful that it taught you about Refilwe?
Yeah. I think most importantly, I'm thankful for the opportunity to have had the ability to do my articles. I mean, we see how people are struggling these days to get articles. I think that for me is number one. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had, but I'm also grateful for the fact that I could transition from a law firm into this other great opportunity. And I think it's testament to the fact that if you put in the work,
Yeah.
the hard work, and
Yeah.
if you work hard,
Yeah.
you can get there. So I think for me, I've always said, you know what, despite the challenges and whatever I've gone through throughout the years, one thing that I've always said keeps me sane and keeps me going is the fact that my hard work always pays off. It might not be at the time I want it to pay off, and there might be delays, and I obviously have to also be patient, but I'm just grateful that the hard work that I put in university finally paid off throughout the years. Yeah.
Wawana repeating grade one.
Well,
to
when I'm
Sitze.
repeating
Wawana-
grade one,
let's take
to see
because grassroots.
Yes.
Yeah, your mom was like, no,
No,
we need you to
repeating
be
grade one,
ready.
she's not ready.
Right?
Exactly.
I love
Yeah.
that. Nothing is for nothing. I always
Nothing
say
is for
that.
nothing.
I always say that.
True.
And then, where did life take you after being
Yeah.
a judge's clerk?
So I went to a bank for a couple of months. Then I went and something, a life-changing opportunity came. And I say it's life-changing because when this opportunity came, I was at a particular bank, and somebody, a recruiter reached out and said, listen, there is a black-owned company that wants somebody to head up the legal department.
Oh, okay.
And I was just like,
You're like me.
that was my reaction. I was like, are you sure about it? She's like, yeah, no, your CV looks great. They really like to meet you. I'm just like, I'm not too sure, but listen, give them my CV and see how things go. And she gave them my CV. I had the interview. And I went to the interview and I was just like, I wasn't sure because the people who were interviewing me, you know how you can sometimes read people? I couldn't read them. I didn't know whether they liked me.
So they were a non-legal company
Yeah, they
looking
were
for a head of legal. Okay.
somebody to run the legal department.
Okay.
So they had a legal department, but it wasn't well established. So they wanted somebody to come in and, sort
Just
out
cement
and
it.
cement it,
Yeah.
right? And I thought, I mean, I don't know if I can do it, but it's worth trying. And I went to the interview, wasn't too sure, so I was convinced I didn't, definitely not getting this one. But anyways, I learned a lot. So a few days later, I get a call, they really like you, here's the offer, are you happy? We worked around that. And those I think I stayed there for about 2 years,
Okay.
8 months.
That's a long time.
I always say to people, those were the most challenging, but the most rewarding 2 years.
Just under 3, basically.
Just under 3. Because, I was always used to, wherever I went, I worked under somebody. So there was always a buffer. I could go to somebody and say, listen, am I right? Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I'm not too sure about this. Can I double check this with you? I think we should do it this way, but I could be wrong. And that buffer would always say, you are right, do it that way. Oh, no, don't do it
Right.
that. So here, there was
They're
no
coming
buffer.
to you and you're
People
like-
are coming to you and I'm like,
You're like,
you
"Yo,
know,
are you guys...
are you sure? Are you,
Am I the adult now?
Am I the literally.
Why don't you ask the other adults?
So I think it was hard, it was challenging, but I learned a lot.
You had to trust yourself.
I had to
You had
trust
to trust
myself,
yourself.
and I had to stop second guessing myself, which is something I also struggled with, And the buck stopped with me. If something goes wrong, it was my fault. And I also appreciated the fact that it's okay to make mistakes.
Right.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Actually, yeah, I appreciate it more as we grow older that
Yes.
also our parents didn't know what they were doing,
Exactly.
right? So now I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Can they, at this age, my mom was going through ABC. She also didn't know what was going on.
Exactly.
Right? And the same thing happens at work. Like sometimes it's okay, you are the boss, but
Yeah.
you don't know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on. So
Sure.
I'm really grateful for that experience because not only did I learn a lot, but I grew in that position. And I think part of who I am today is because of that experience. And like I said, one of the most important lessons that I learned from that experience was it's okay to make mistakes.
Sure.
It's okay not to know the
Forgive
answer.
yourself,
and to
move
forgive
on,
yourself and
move
to move
on.
on.
Yeah.
And to not know the answer. I think something that we were taught in practice, not in practice, but in articles, there was this fascination with people.
You gotta be sure. You gotta be
When
sure.
I ask you 1 + 1, you must give 2. You must be sure that it's 2. But sometimes actually is 1 + 1 really, so you have to think. You're not in articles because we're trying to impress and give off this impression that I'm competent. You automatically run to answering questions. But there, I think it gave me the opportunity to also pause and reflect sometimes to be like, actually, the answer is A, but
It depends.
it depends. It could also be B and C.
Attorney's favorite line, but we like
But,
saying, well, it depends.
It depends, So yeah, I think that for me was what I took from that experience. It's okay to make mistakes and sometimes just pause and reflect on things before making a decision.
Sure, I love that. I actually really love that. And when did the other side of Refilwe come about? I mean, we know that it's always been there, but when were you like, oh man, let me be serious about this thing. Let me pursue it. Let me tap into my creative side.
COVID. You know what? COVID, we were all busy cooking.
Yeah.
Got the recipe, coming up with recipes. And I remember I thought to myself, I've always wanted to be on TV, man. And I remember growing up, I used to tell my parents, there was one particular day I'll never forget. My parents had to spend the whole day in Randburg because we were in queues for auditions for KTV.
Oh,
so,
Yeah.
I thought to myself during COVID, I was like, I've always wanted to be on TV. Surely I should try and
Now's
see
the
where,
time.
Yes. So I started looking at agencies, and also this is also something that I had to be vigilant about because scammers, agencies that require people to pay money beforehand. So I looked around and I found the perfect agent. She's like, no, you don't pay a signing fee. You just have to take professional photos. Then we'll take your signing fee from your first job, which for me made sense, right? I was like, she's definitely legit. So I signed up, and let me tell you, I always tell people, you will go to audition after audition and feel like you're not good enough because you show up for
Rejection after
rejection
rejection.
after rejection
And you
after
think you
rejection.
killed it.
And you think you killed it. You're in that room and also the casting director is also telling you, yes, 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 you killed it. And then
radio
your agent
silence.
comes back and says, Ish, unfortunately, you didn't get the part. And then eventually one day I went to an audition and there was a script. But my agent, for some reason, did not give me the script. I think there was a miscommunication or something. So
Yeah.
I get to this audition, and the casting director says, okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, do you know your script? I'm like,
What
what script?
script?
I'm like, no. It's like, oh, there's a script. I'm like, no, I don't know the script, so it's okay, I'll just leave. Like, no, I'm gonna give you 10 minutes to go through the script because it's not fair to you and you didn't have time to go through it. You can remix the script. So I did that, went into that audition room, went home, wasn't too confident about that audition. The next day I got a call. In fact, I got the call from the production team asking about my sizes. Usually they tell your agent and then the agent tells you, oh, you got the role. But for some reason there was a miscommunication with this
Again.
particular role again. I didn't get a call from my agent saying you got the job. I actually got a call from the production assistant saying, hi, we are going to go and look for your wardrobe for the
role.
role.
Or was
the
it a
shoot,
commercial?
A commercial. I was like, what commercial? She's like, sorry, they didn't tell you. You got the DSTV commercial, wada. And I was like, oh.
Hey,
and yeah, that was the beginning of it all. I think
life is an interesting place to be.
Is an interesting place to be. And yeah, I saw myself, we shot for the whole day. I always tell people, you will shoot and shoot for hours for a 60-second clip.
Yeah.
But I think it's rewarding in the sense that it's something I love, something I enjoy doing. And even if you stand there for hours or you are on set for hours, but I leave feeling fulfilled because it's something I love, something I enjoy. And I remember the first few auditions or when I did a first few shoots, people would ask, why would a lawyer want to do this? You probably get way better money.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about not getting paid.
Yeah.
Why would you? I'm
Why
like,
do you
and I told people it's really just about being passionate about something. When you love something and when you've always wanted to, I didn't want to have regrets. I didn't want to be 50 and think, why didn't I
should
actually
have
try it?
pursued
I
X,
should
Y.
have, So I really enjoy it. And I think I've been blessed enough to be in positions that allow me to do both. Some do not allow me, but some have allowed me to do it. And yeah, I just love it. I enjoy it. Yeah.
So during COVID, were you unemployed or did it overlap with the 2 years, 8 months where you were?
So it overlapped.
Okay.
So I was still I've never done commercials and TV outside of law.
Okay.
I've always done them together.
Okay.
So I had the flexibility with COVID. It was much nicer. I mean, COVID was terrible.
Yeah.
Not that COVID was nice,
Yeah.
but it was easier to get into the TV commercial space because auditions were done through self-tapes. So you didn't have to go sit in queues for hours trying to
You'd submit
audition,
a
right?
tape.
So you'd submit a tape. So it was easy. I would be at home working and I could quickly shoot like a self-tape in 2 seconds or 10 minutes, right? So, and that's the difficulty with trying to balance the two now, that I'm back at work full-time. So how do I then now balance trying to go to an audition where I'm going to be in a queue for 3 hours when I also have to be back at the office or back at home working? So
Okay, so now are you working full-time, like not
full-time.
remotely?
Yeah,
You're working
full-time.
full-time from the office.
Well, it's hybrid.
Okay.
But I also think I've also gotten to a point where I had to choose between the two, right? And it's not that there isn't flexibility to do my commercial stuff anymore in my current role. There is that ability to do it. But I think I had to make the decision and pause it a little bit because there's something that I'm working on in respect of my career that I want to make sure that I achieve. And I had to make a realistic decision that currently, right now, I can't do both because there's this thing I'm working towards. So I got my master's during COVID also, inspired by being in the industry, in the commercial industry. I also then pursued a master's in intellectual property law. So this master's was really influenced. It was a passion project, as I called it. So people asked, why would you do IP? The last time you did IP was in your third year of your LLB. It's a difficult specialization area. Why would you go there? And I think I did this master's for two reasons. The first reason is my mom, who's now late, had cancer. And I always wondered, why was it so expensive to get her the necessary health care?
Yes,
And
yes.
so I wanted to understand why medication was so expensive, why her getting the treatment was so expensive. So it all had to do with patent law,
And licenses
and all of that.
Interesting, sure,
So
yeah,
that's why this was really a core passion project. That's why I did my master's. And also being in the industry, in the entertainment industry, the plight of artists, I finally understood it myself, right? Being in that industry, understanding, when you are outside of something, you don't really sympathize as much as you would if you were
Seeing it
you
from
were
the
experiencing
inside,
the
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
So because I experienced it, not that I didn't get paid on time or whatever, but you have to wait for a 3-month period to get paid
Yo.
money for a shoot you had a couple of months back, So I thought to myself, listen, IP is quite interesting. It's a very specialized area, but because I'm passionate about IP because of that particular reason, because of my mom's cancer diagnosis, and now because of my interest in the entertainment industry, why not do a master's in IP law? So I did a master's in IP law, and I finally got, after 2 years of working hard and pushing through it, finally got my master's, and now I'm in a legal role that really allows me to use that
To
IP
tap into
and
that.
to tap
Yeah,
into
that was going to
IP.
be my next question.
Yeah.
That what does, like, as the legal advisor you are now, what does a typical day look like? What are the typical transactions?
So
Yeah.
I think my current role is absolutely amazing because I get to use my IP knowledge, and that was something I really looked for after I got my master's. So I thought to myself, there's no way I'm not going to use this master's. I worked too hard for it, and I actually enjoyed IP law when I was studying it. So I thought to myself, I definitely have to now look for a role that will allow me to use this knowledge. And unfortunately, my previous role was very limited. It was in a bank. It was very technical. So I then looked for an opportunity, and I know that I'm in the right position now. And that is why I had to make the conscious decision of deciding, can I actually pursue my TV interest, entertainment interest, and this passion
Legal
project
role,
and
yeah.
legal role that I want to push. So I actually want to enhance my knowledge in IP law more than just textbook knowledge, right? Because right now it's basic textbook knowledge, which I now get to apply, right, for a couple of months that I've been in this role, that I'm now able to apply. But I think my current focus now is trying to make sure that I thrive in this niche field that I now find myself in.
What's a typical example of you applying your law to your role? Obviously, you don't have to give us a
Yeah.
matter that you are working on,
Yeah.
but you can just give us an example, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So a typical day includes looking at if a particular third party is not infringing on our company's IP. So
okay.
maybe in a commercial, I'm just making an example. Maybe in a commercial, somebody does not use our products without seeking consent from us. So and also I should emphasize that my role is not really just IP, right? So I'm a generalist. So a lot of in-house roles, when you do them, you don't specifically specialize unless
Yes.
if you are hired and they say, okay, we're only looking for an information technology lawyer who's going to go and head up our information technology department. But however, where I am right now, which has been the case in most of the roles that I've taken on ever since I left practice, my roles have been a generalist role, meaning that I do everything.
Okay.
So whatever comes your way and you have to handle labor law, IP law, whatever, I have the knowledge to do it, so I will do it. And I think that's what I enjoy about in-house, right? Very different from practice, because I don't think I would survive in an environment where I'm only channeled to one thing.
Yeah.
I love IP, but I also don't think I would be comfortable to do IP.
Just IP
only,
the whole time.
right? So that's really what I enjoy about being in-house, that I'm a journalist. So competition law, and you have bits of knowledge of every, sphere of the law. So and I love that. I love that. That if somebody asks me about employment law now, I don't like it
But you know
necessarily,
what's going
but I know
on.
what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. I can just already see you in your employer's commercial.
Yeah. Right.
Like you are going to audition for
I'm
the
going
next
to audition.
commercial.
Actually,
I see it.
I must actually tell them you don't have to look for
Don't look far, guys.
other
I'm
people.
here. I'm here.
I'm here.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, Refilwe, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you and learning from you.
Yeah.
But in these last 5 minutes that we have, is there anything that you'd like to say that I didn't ask you, but you think this is a good platform for you to share? Anything, words of advice to students and young professionals, or maybe to our colleagues, whatever it may be.
I think most importantly, thank you, Bells, for having me. This was really fantastic. I think it's always nice to share your experiences with somebody who can also relate, right? So I think
reflect.
and
It's a good time
reflect,
to
right?
reflect,
To also
yeah.
reflect on how far you've also come and what you still need to do. And I think most importantly, if I would give advice to a law student somewhere who's sitting in their first, second, or third year, I think never downplay the importance of hard work.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't downplay the importance of hard work. And we now see what is happening in the legal field. People are struggling to get articles. Differentiate yourself from everybody, right? And it's not just about hard work, but it's also about building connections with the right people. I think something that I've also learned about the legal field, it's very small.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody. You mention somebody's name, oh yeah, Refilwe, oh Bells, yes, I know her.
Yeah.
So build the right connections. Don't downplay the importance of hard work.
Don't burn bridges.
Don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
And always be intentional, right?
Yeah.
So be intentional about where you want to go, what you want to be, and always prioritize yourself.
I love that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Refilwe, for your
Thank
time.
you.
I absolutely enjoyed having this conversation with you, and I'm sure that someone has learned something. I think most importantly, what I always aim to do on this platform is to teach. So thank you for stepping in as a teacher today. I know that your insights will reach the right person.
Thank you very much, Bells. Thank you.
And you at home, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, comment, don't forget to subscribe, and most importantly, don't forget to share this with your loved ones. Until next time, goodbye.